All right, it's 10:50, so we're going to get started. If you don't have a ballot, please take one. They're in the back, they're in the front. We will be voting today in different ways. Please take a ballot from the front of the room as you come in. Thank you. So a quick introduction, and we'll get to the content, right? My name is Mike. I'm a social studies teacher at Almaden Country Day School in San Jose, California. And I'm also an iCivics Teacher Facilitator Fellow in the state of California. And I've been experimenting with ways to teach civics and get kids thinking about democracy and thinking about redesigning democracy, which is the theme of this session. So we're going to be doing some of what I've been doing with students. If you have something to write with, that's great. If not, you can remember what you voted for. But it's better if you've got a pen or pencil and your ballot. All right, so first the why. Why try out different voting methods as a class? I have two reasons. Reason A is civics education, obviously. It's what we're here for. Questions like how are elections structured, just having kids understand how things work. Why are so many Americans dissatisfied with their choices of candidates and the winners our elections produce, which is one of the things, especially in election years, kids keep asking, like, I don't really like these candidates, but how do they get to be the two candidates? And how might our elections be improved or reimagined? I'm a big fan of having kids design their way out of problems, especially with government. So it's not enough just to learn about why things don't work, but to also get the tools for making things work better and imagining that they can be part of that effort. But then also reason one, and by the way, just a tip, if you want to keep two things equal, call them A and 1. They're the same. Social emotional learning. I see civics education as kind of, I see social emotional learning as applied civics education. That in the classroom, and it's something a lot of our schools are working on, how to get kids understanding each other, making better decisions together, working out their problems. So the big essential question in my class is, what does fairness look like? That's what this is about. Why do people disagree about what fairness looks like? It seems on the surface like there's fairness and there's unfairness, and we know, but really there's a lot of different versions of this. And how can our class make decisions together in a way that seems fair and lets everyone feel that their views have been considered, even if they don't win? So another big question in my class that undergirds everything is when you lose an election or some kind of political battle, what makes you still have trust in the system so that you accept that loss and live to fight another day? So you'll notice on the ballots that you have, the candidates we're going to be voting on today are colors, not people. And there's a few reasons for this. First of all, colors are nonpartisan, and they're relatively uncontroversial, though students do have surprisingly strong opinions about some of them, like pink, always. But even though they like their colors, they're not going to be like fighting about their colors later after class. And that's really important for me, is to, I teach in an ideologically diverse section of the Bay Area, the South Bay Area, and people often assume that it's all Democrats and progressives, and it is not. And so I want to make sure that everyone in that room feels like they have access to the choices and aren't going to be judged for it later. So nearly everyone has access, even red, green, colorblind kids. I suppose if you're totally colorblind, you can still vote on them, you just might not be able to visualize the colors. The other thing about the colors and having so many of them is that you can group the choices into categories to represent political parties, as we'll see in a few moments. So what I do with this is, for each of the ballots, is to organize the election in a different way so that you can see what the possibilities are and where things can go wrong. If you just come in, please take a ballot either in the back table or in the front of the stage, because we're going to get going now with our elections. So here's our first round. What I'd like you to do is just vote for your favorite color of all the colors on that list for round 1A. Vote for your favorite color. Now, my 8th graders will be chatting during this, and it'll take them forever, and I'll say, it will just take you 10 seconds to do this or less. Really easy, vote for your favorite color. All right, so we have a small enough group that we're gonna do a tally. Now, we have to figure out One of the things before, I think people are still coming in, but we have our basic number. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So 21 people. A majority would be how many? 11. Okay, 11. Okay. So in order to get a majority, just to know in the back of your head, we would need at least 11 of you to be voting for something. All right. So let's see. Do we have votes for beige? Raise your hand if you voted for beige. No votes for beige. Okay. Black. We have 1 vote for black. Oops, that didn't work. All right. Do we have votes for blue? Ooh, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. 9 votes for blue. Brown. Green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Gray. Orange. Oh, that's unusual. Okay. 1 vote for orange. Pink. 1, 2. Only. Okay. If we were 8th graders, there'd be more. But 2 votes for pink. Purple. One vote for purple. Red. Oh, no. Okay, interesting. I've never done this with adults before, but yeah, this is different. Turquoise. Okay. 2. White. And yellow. Okay. So our winner here is obviously blue. Now, it's obviously here. It's often not obvious, right? It's not a majority. It's almost a majority. That's actually unusual when I've been doing this. This, of course, is our plurality voting. The candidate with the most votes wins, winner take all. This is what most kids and classrooms and teachers assume elections are supposed to be. You vote for your favorite, and whichever one gets the most votes wins. Done. It does not require a majority. It's just a plurality. And I'm really deliberate about defining those terms for kids and explaining the difference that majority means that most people, like over 50%, agree, and plurality just means that the one who got the most votes, and it can be well under that. And this is widely assumed, when you're not thinking deeply, widely assumed to be fair, because it's the way we always do it. Typically, when they're asked about this after they've done it, students do not view this approach as reflective of the will of the group. Here we did have 9 blue out of 21. I think we got some more, so we'll recalibrate our majority in a moment. But, what will often happen is we'll have maybe 3 or 4 is the maximum vote for any one of these colors. And then so a color can win with 4 votes out of a full class of 20 or 25, and that doesn't seem to reflect the will of the group. So now we'll do round 1B. So our top 2 vote getters were blue and green, which got 6 votes. So now it's between blue and green. So you have to choose one of them. If you voted for blue before, you don't have to vote for blue again. If you voted for green, you don't have to vote for green again. And now, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So what's our majority number? 23? 12. Okay, we need at least 12. Our votes for blue in this round 1B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 for blue. So I'm just going to imagine that since we have 23, we'll have 9 for green, and then blue is our winner. So that's our runoff election. So plurality plus runoff, where the top 2 vote getters face off in a second round. And I described to my kids that many US elections work this way. In my state of California, all elections work this way. They're nonpartisan primaries. And then whoever is the top 2 faces off in the general election. If there's someone who gets a majority in the primary, there's no general election. So our San Jose mayor this year got a majority in March in the primary, so there was no mayor election on the ballot in November. This is also why when Kamala Harris started running this year, people were wondering how she's going to fend against a Republican, because she had not run against a Republican in 2016 for the Senate. She had run against Democratic Representative Laura Sanchez, who was a fellow Democrat. They were the top 2 in California. Georgia also does a version of this. They have partisan primaries, and then if no one gets a majority, you have a runoff. That's how Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff became senators from Georgia. This system guarantees a majority winner, unlike the plurality system. Yet, in a crowded field, the finalists may have received low numbers of votes initially. And students, because of that, are often dissatisfied with the choice of finalists. So here's a sample from my 8th grade, as I mentioned. In this one, black and yellow tied with just 3 votes each. And then when they advanced to round 1B, like a slew of people, like supermajority, voted for black. So it seems like black got overwhelming support, and it did, but also it was the first choice of only a small fraction of the class. And so when kids evaluate this, they're like, yeah, yes, we all voted, but that wasn't really what we wanted initially. So they're often dissatisfied with this, even though it produces a majority. If you just came in, please grab a ballot from either the back or the front of the room so you can record your votes. Please grab a ballot in the front. All right, we're up to, I think we had 2 people in, so I think. So we're like 25, so what's a majority? Okay, we're now at 13 as a majority, okay. So round 2A, these instructions are slightly more complicated. First, pick a category. You're either blues or reds. Once you've picked which category you like, vote for one color within that category. Again, this should take you about 10 seconds. Okay, good? We're all good? Okay. So stand up if you're able to stand up. Stand up if you are on team blues. Okay. All right, so we have it seems like a sizable majority of the room was on team blues. Okay, of those people standing, or if you're not able to stand, you can raise your hand for one of these. How many voted for black? 1. How many voted for blue? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many voted for green? 1, 2. How many voted for gray? How many voted for purple? 1, 2, 3. And how many voted for turquoise? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, great. Sit down. Stand up if you're able. If you're on the Reds team. Okay, of those people, how many voted for beige, brown, orange? Yeah, we got an orange. Okay, pink. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Red, white, and yellow. Did I miss your vote? Oh, green? No, for the reds, right. So we got, okay, all right, good, thank you. Okay, you may sit down. So our blues winner was blue. Our reds winner was pink, and this is often what happens. So that was our primary, and now we're in the general. It's blue versus pink. Well, I'll notice something about this, but we'll get to it in a moment. So in the general, now you don't have to stick to your team. You can vote for any of the colors you would like. How many? Let's start with pink. How many votes for pink? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10, okay. And how many for blue? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. Not everyone voted, but that's okay. Not everyone has to vote in a general election. So blue barely wins, right? Now notice a few things about this. This is interesting, right? Blue got 7 votes initially, which is not anywhere close to a majority of the room. But blue ekes out a majority of the voters, not of the room, which is also interesting to note. Majority of the voters coming in 1 vote above pink. And then the other thing to note is that notice how turquoise got more initial votes than pink. And this often frustrates students that why isn't it blue versus turquoise? Because they got the most votes, right? And I'll explain to them, like, this is something that happened actually in 2008 in the epic Democratic primary between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, where they ran like all 50 states and Puerto Rico and Guam, racking up millions upon millions upon millions of votes. And Obama won, but just by a little bit, and Hillary Clinton got this massive amounts of votes, and then Obama was up not against Clinton in the general, but against John McCain, who got like relatively inconsequential number of votes, not being a darling of Republicans, but eked out a win in that primary. And so Hillary Clinton was, this immensely popular candidate who didn't get to compete in the general. And then many of her voters ended up voting for McCain, just as many of Bernie Sanders voters in 2016 ended up voting for Donald Trump, right? If you're dissatisfied with the results of your primary, you can jump ship and go to another one. So I give them some of that historical context, examples where this kind of thing has happened before. These are primary in general, where teams select their nominees. Most US elections work this way. It does not require a majority for either of them, actually. And regularly, the second place finisher from one team gets more votes than the first place finisher from the other team. So students often wonder, why is the popular candidate, or the second most popular candidate, excluded from that second election? For the general election, if there are more than two teams, and this I've set up where there are two teams, so there's going to be a majority of voters, but there's no guarantee of a majority if there's more than that, and voters occasionally will cross over. What students wonder about this often is, what's the point of having the teams? Like, why am I picking blue or red? Why not just choose the best one? And then when they figure out, like, this is the way our American elections work, we're divided into teams first and we choose a candidate, they're like, well, that can work a lot of the time, but we end up dissatisfied there too. So again, the big question is, what does fairness look like? These are the most common American elections, and people don't really feel like it's always going to be fair. All right. So this is an example of what I just described. Round 3. I'd like you to choose a category, one of these 4. Blacks and whites, blues, reds, or yellows. Okay. How many are on the blacks and whites team? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. On the blues team, ever popular, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Ooh, okay. Reds team, 1, 2, 3. And yellows team, 1. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So here we actually have a majority of blues. In this round, what I'll tell students is, okay, we've elected a legislature, and the blues will get, what is our total? 6 plus 6. Okay, so 15 out of 21 seats. Blacks and reds will get 3 out of 21 seats each, and yellows will get 1 seat, right? Or if it's a 100-seat legislature, it'll be that times whatever number. And this is proportional representation. It's how most elections in most of the world work. And it's eye-opening for American students to realize this, that we're the supposedly the oldest democracy and the most important democracy and a role model for everyone else. But when we export elections, we do not export our model. We usually, if we're propping up a government, which we're less inclined to do now, we're doing it this way. And most other governments in the world that are democracies do it this way. It gives significant power to parties, to party committees to choose if you're doing it this version of proportional representation. But what it means is, if you vote for a party, even if that party doesn't win, your party still has a voice. So students appreciate the wider choice of teams, but when they learn that the party committees will choose the actual individuals who win, they become a little suspicious of how those leaders will be chosen. So after that, I found this video from Vox, which I'm not going to show now, but I'll include in the slides when you get the QR code at the end, called Why US Elections Only Give You 2 Choices. This is from this year. And what they do is they break down a lot of proportional systems from around the world. So what I've used is the closed list. You vote for a party. You could also vote for a party and candidates. So you vote for, like, if your party gets a certain number of seats, the people who become the representatives will be the people who got the most votes in that election. You can do a mix, like a hybrid. So like some of you vote for people for some of the seats, you vote for party for others of the seats. So when I show this, the kids are like, oh, I see, like this could actually work in different ways. You can set it up different ways. There are different countries, especially in Europe, Israel, other countries that work this way. Okay, round 4, select 3 colors. Just put check marks next to 3 colors that you like. All right, so in a smaller class, counting this is not hard, but it's going to be a little, like we have a sizable group now, so we're just going to spot it, right? Raise your hand for beige. If you vote beige was one of them, okay? Black, blue, Okay, blue, yeah, blue. Brown, green, okay, blue, green, gray, orange. Oh, now we got 3. Okay, so look at this. You're expanding your coalition. Pink, yeah, purple, yeah, purple, red, turquoise, okay, white, yellow, right? So just as a spot check, right? Our winners would be blue, green, and purple. I then say, okay, there are 3 seats, and those are the 3 who get the seats. This only works, of course, for legislatures. Right? It doesn't work for a president or a governor. Here's my question to you. How many of you voted for at least one of the winners? Raise your hand if you voted for at least one of the winners. Yeah. That's a super majority of people, right? So this is an at-large district model. And it's often used in local elections or city government, county councils or boards of supervisors or city councils, where there's districts, but there's not a ton of districts. And so some districts might be by geography and others are just by, vote for the 3 at-large seats, and whatever the top 3, whoever the top 3 are, get it. Often the vast majority of voters select at least one of the eventual winners. That's what happened here. But the downside is it can't be used for a single occupancy office. Students typically really like this method, especially because very few students are dissatisfied. Like they all think like, okay, one of mine is typically up there, or something close to mine is typically up there. And they view it as a consensus. Like you're not having one choice, you're having 3, or you could have more, you could have 5, and it reflects the will of the people. Here are 2 ways that it's happened in my 8th grade class. This one, blue, pink, and red, all got the same number of votes, and so they shared first place status. Here, white was an overwhelming winner, but of these 3, nearly everyone had voted for one of their top 3. So that tends to work pretty well. All right, now it gets complicated. But this is what localities everywhere now are thinking about trying out. Rank your top 5 colors. Rank meaning number 1 is your top color, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. This may take slightly longer, so maybe like 20 seconds. Okay. We're just going to ask for number 1 position right now, right? Number 1 position, which is probably going to be roughly similar to at the beginning, but we have a little bit more, few more people than at the first round, so we'll do the tally again. How many for beige? Number 1 position, beige. Number 1 position, black. 1, 2, 1, 2, okay. Number 1 position, blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Number 1 position, brown. Green. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gray. No, okay. Orange. 1. Pink. 1, 2, 3. Purple. 1, red, 1, turquoise, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the most popular turquoise has ever been in anything I've ever done. White, and yellow. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. The colors that got votes but came in last are orange, purple, and red. So first our orange person. Who voted for orange? Okay. What was your second choice? Blue, okay. So we're going to redistribute your vote to blue. Now blue has 10. And by the way, of our votes, there were 12, 16, 19, 21, 20, 25. So 25 counted. Okay. So purple, who was voting for purple? What is your second choice? Blue, okay. So now blue has 11. So we're at 25. So what's a majority of 25? We're waiting for 13? Okay. Red, who was our red person? What was your second choice? Black, okay. So black is now going to get 3. Okay, here we go. We don't have anyone at a majority yet. Person in the red and black who just said black, what was your third choice?
My third choice was blue.
Blue, okay. And who are the other, so let's see, pink. Oh no, who are the other two black people? Not black, this is where you can get in trouble. People who voted for black. What was your second choice?
Blue.
Blue, oh, we're getting close. Here is our majority, but we'll go through just in case. Yeah, what was your second choice? Turquoise. So we'll add one to turquoise. Anyway, you'd go on down the line, right? We already have blue as a majority, but you would go to pink also that got 3 and ask for their second choice. And the way it works is you keep going, redistributing the votes to second and third choices from the losing candidates until one candidate gets a majority. And if we had more time, we would keep going and see how big a majority blue would get, because that would be pretty important to see, like, is it an overwhelming consensus or is it just a narrow majority? This is our ranked choice voting with instant runoff. Rank your top 5 choices. It could be any number, but most of the places that do it are top 5. Then redistribute the losing candidates' votes until one of them gets a majority. One thing that students often don't understand about this is that it's an automatic, instant runoff. It's not like you have to ask the voters again, which sometimes when I first started doing this, they thought that's what you'd keep coming back to the voters. Like, no, the computers tabulate what it is. It takes a little while, but you eventually end up with a majority winner. So there's an increasing number of city and state elections that work this way. The state of Alaska, the state of Maine, the cities of New York City, San Francisco. Just 2 weeks ago, Washington, D.C. voted to make ranked choice voting its elections. Colorado just rejected a more complicated version of ranked choice voting. So this results in a winner acceptable enough to a majority of voters. Now we notice that blue got the most votes the first time and also ended up with the majority in ranked choice. That's not always what happens, and I'll show you in a moment that not happening. But there are a number of theoretical advantages to this, and I say theoretical because there's not enough of a sample size to know this for sure. But the idea is that if you were to have ranked choice voting, it would encourage moderation among the candidates rather than extremes, and positive campaigning. And the reason for both of those is that instead of running to shoot down the other candidates and destroy them, you're running to be the second or third choice of your opponent's voters. So what you're selling yourself as the reason people like me rather than the reason people hate them. You should hate them. And so the idea is it would lead to more positive campaigning, more coalition building within the election between candidates. And so the incentives for candidates are to run positive campaigns, and the incentives for voters are to vote for third parties. Now, if in most American elections, if you vote for a third party, you're really voting for a spoiler. And it might end up with the candidate you like least of the major parties winning. Famously, that's what happened in 2000 with people voting for Ralph Nader and Bush wins over Gore. But in ranked choice voting, you can vote for your third party, like favored candidate first, rank the major party candidate you like kind of enough second, and if the third party doesn't get enough votes, you won't have wasted your vote. That vote will go to the major party candidate who's on your side, so to speak. So students often appreciate the reasonable result, but they view the method as more complicated, not as much in terms of tallying the numbers, but in terms of just understanding what it is you're doing. And they worry a little bit, like not enough voters are going to be informed enough about enough of the candidates for this to really work, which is a valid critique. Here's a sample of what happens often, where in this one, blue and yellow got the most votes, just 3 each in their initial vote. Pink tied for second place. But when we did the rundown, we narrowed it down to blue and pink eked out a majority victory. And because it was enough people's second or third choice that it emerged the victor in the instant runoff, which was surprising to a lot of people. That blue, they thought blue would just run away with it. But enough people just didn't like blue. They liked the Blues, the team, but they didn't like that candidate. And this can often happen. The second place or even third place candidate in the initial vote ends up being more of a consensus choice in the room. And it means that fewer people are dissatisfied, and then the hope is with ranked choice voting that more people would actually like their officials once they're in office because they feel invested in them, they voted for them, sort of. and that the government citizen feedback loop would be a positive feedback loop rather than negative, where because these candidates in the primary general system, they're often not the first choice of their voters, people are inclined to think negatively about them. You have a negative downward feedback loop. All right, so these last two, I have not seen used in actual governments, but this one I've seen used in the classroom. And I wanted to include it because it also kind of expands your idea of what elections can be. Distribute 10 votes however you'd like. So in other words, you have 10 votes. You could put all 10 in one color. You can do 5 and 5. You can do 3 and 3 and 4. You could do 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 10 times. However you want to distribute them. And again, because of time, we're not going to run the numbers completely on this, although I would if it were a smaller class. But just to get a spot check of what it seems like, right? What I'd like you to do is, when I call the color, hold up with your fingers. This is why I give 10, because most people have 10 fingers. The number of votes you gave it, if you gave it, right? Beige. Okay, we have 2 votes for beige, which is interesting. Actually, I'm going to put it here. We're not going to do it for everyone. Black. Look at that. So black didn't get a lot of votes last time, but we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have a lot. We've been well into the double digits. Maybe like almost 20 for black, right? Blue. I'm assuming. Yeah, there's a lot. That would take a while to count. Brown. So still no votes for brown. Oh, sorry, brown. Green. Okay, a lot more votes than before. You got a lot of people who distributed in green. Gray. We have 2 votes for gray. That's the gray's first time on the board. Orange. 10. Okay, and 12, right. So this is what happens, and I'm going to get to this. This happens often, right? We have someone who's really, really committed, but that's what this is for, right? Pink. Okay, not a lot of people, but quite a lot of votes. Again, right? Purple. Quite a bit for purple. Red. Yeah. Turquoise. White. We have 2 for white. I think first time white on the board. And yellow. Okay. All right. So in this one, I think blue would end up winning in the end, it sounds like. But not by a ton. And what often happens, so what I'll call this is intensity distribution. Where you place a certain number, it could be any number, I use 10, wherever you'd like. It allows for both highly committed and undecided voters to weigh in confidently, right? We have a highly committed orange person here who knew exactly where, you didn't have to think very long, right? You knew, 10 in orange, right? We want orange. But you also have people who are like, I don't know, colors, whatever, I'm not really into this. Sure, I'll just give a few, right? And that's okay, because you end up voting, you add to the total for the winner. I've seen this done with what we just did with fingers. I've also seen it done live with and tactile. So give each student 10 chips, and you've got buckets for the different candidates, and they can put their chips in however many buckets they want, and then you add up the chips. And if you do that, it allows for negotiation and coalition building. So someone can be like, hey, I really like red. Can you put some of the chips in red, and I'll put some of your chips in your yellow for you, right? And you can sort of have that politicking happening live. And students like this. They feel like the winner really had usually had intensity behind them. But some classmates complain that, some people complain about classmates giving all their voters to one candidate to boost its vote share. This is an example. Brown won this election with 40. Now, 40, all you need is 4 people with 10 fingers up in the air to have it win. And Brown benefited from a small yet intense fan base. But that's sort of the point of this, right? That we assume that in elections it should reflect the consensus of the room, but maybe what we want is some people care and other people don't care as much. And in this election, it reflects the degree of how much you care. And so, yeah, okay, give it to Brown. They have a lot of intense support, and the other people are like, nah, so fine. Maybe they're not going to be as involved. And maybe that's okay. For our last For our last round, this was actually created by an 8th grade class of mine 2 years ago. I've never seen this happen in classrooms or in real life. But they came up with it, and what I liked about it is like, I didn't ask them to come up with these. Initially, this activity was just, let's get to know different ways of doing elections. And at the end of last year's class, I said, well, how about this? They just had an idea. And we had some time, so we tried it out. Vote for 3 colors you wish to eliminate. The 3 you despise the most. Block 3 colors. That's what it's asking. Are we ready? All right, I'm going to take a tally for this. I'm curious. Beige. Oh, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 for beige. I think it's time I'll use manila. That's probably a more reviled color. Black. Oh, 1. Okay, interesting. Blue. Really? Huh, okay. Brown. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Green. 1. Gray. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on this muggy, cloudy, rainy day in Boston. Orange. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 votes against orange. Pink. Only 1. Huh. Usually pink gets a ton of votes in this. But yay, pink. Purple. 1. Red. 1. Turquoise. 1, 2, 3. White. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And yellow. Oh, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. So, wow. Okay. This is unexpected because blue is once again our winner. This has never happened in the 2 years that I've been doing this. Fascinating. This group really appreciates blue. And actually, I'll be getting back to this because this is a sign that we have a real winner, a real legitimate winner in this group. But we call this a negative ballot. Vote for the candidates you wish to eliminate. This guarantees that the winner will be inoffensive to most voters. And often it guarantees that the winner will be inoffensive to everyone, in this case, blue. It often, though, eliminates both the least popular and the most popular. It didn't happen in this one. Fascinating. But it does usually, especially since this is the last one we do in the sequence, there will be a group of students that becomes really animated, against the winner because they don't like that kept winning. And so they'll really vote against that winner. So that winner gets eliminated. Students enjoy expressing their dislike of candidates, but even the students who came up with this ended up not liking it. Because except for this group, most of them are like, what? How did that one win? We don't really want that one to win, but it just was the blandest or least offensive. In this one, black won with 0 votes, but it had not gotten anywhere near a majority or even a plurality in the other elections. So it's like a winner by elimination. However, this group, we know that this is a blue group. Well done. So, which versions of democracy seem most true to the concept of demos, the people making decisions for the society? Turn and talk to someone around you. Just have this conversation really quickly. What do you think of these choices? Which is the most democratic? Great. Take about 15 seconds to wrap up your conversation. And before we're done, if you haven't introduced yourself to the person you're talking to, let them know who you are and where you're from and what you teach. All right. So for time's sake, we'll wrap up these conversations, but then talk on your way out the door afterward. That's fine. The big essential question of this activity was what does fairness look like? And why do people disagree about what fairness is? And this shows why people disagree. Each of these is maybe not the negative ballot, but most of them are seen as fair somewhere in some government, in some society, in some classroom. And they often result in different winners and different people feeling like they lost. And that's really the key, right? Who feels like they weren't served by the process? And that's one of your ways of measuring which is most democratic. Typically, when students write about this and talk about it, they move from the sense of, I know the result doesn't seem fair, but oh well, those are the rules. And that's what we often instill in our kids, elementary classrooms about voting, hey, be a good sport, you lost. This is how we did it, the person with the most votes won. In the direction of how can we design rules that reflect the will of the voters as closely as possible? And how can we design rules that encourage voters to select the options they truly prefer, rather than trying to game a system and voting for the one you don't, you're kind of sucking it up and voting for them because you're worried what will happen if you don't. I will note that there are two voting methods I have not included here from the United States. One is the Electoral College. And we're kind of all in the Electoral College right now. It's 2024. But this is applicable to only one single election in the entire world, only once every 4 years. No one else uses this. Not even the United States uses this for anything else besides the presidency. It's only there because of a delicate compromise in the Constitutional Convention to prevent small states and slave states from aligning with Spain or France and ruining the United States. So it's true. I teach the Electoral College. It's overly complicated as a classroom simulation. I actually did one this year for a 4th grade at my school. I'm the curriculum coach for my school, so I'm going into different grade levels and doing election activities with them. It was a group of about maybe 40 4th graders. It's tricky because you have to set it up, you have to backward design it after the votes have been cast. So they vote, and then you have to figure out which states they're in order to make the Electoral College result different from the popular vote, which is so much showing what happens in the Electoral College. So it's complicated. Instead, I would recommend teaching the Electoral College through the Win the White House game from iCivics. I am an iCivics Teacher Facilitator Fellow, so that's part of my job, but I really do like this game. The kids are really into it, and they get to be candidates trying to rack up 270 electoral votes. The other one I didn't do in this activity, but I have done with other classes, is caucusing. Seemingly in decline, at least in the Democratic Party, and so we'll see what happens to the Republicans in Iowa. I'm sorry if any of you are from Iowa, but there are more primaries happening now in that direction. It's quite loud and messy as a classroom simulation, as it is in real life if you've ever seen or been to a caucus. I did this in the primary caucus season in 2020 with a class of maybe 50 kids. And they made their signs and tried to convince people as they were voting, come caucus with me. It's rowdy and it's fun. No one makes the case that it is representing the will of the people. I've never heard that it's a case for caucusing. It's more like an intensity goal to have the people who care most come out and do it and have a community building. So if you're up for it, try it out if it's relevant, but I didn't include it here. Here's when you scan the QR code, you get the slides. You can have see the promo for Win the White House. I'll just also mention, this probably will never happen again, hopefully, but in 2021, in California, where I teach, the very beginning of the school year, it was the week before the recall election where Gavin Newsom was being recalled in that election. And the way the recalls work, and I don't know how many of you were following this or if you know this, it's a ridiculous system. First, you vote for whether the governor should be recalled, and then if the governor is recalled, who do you want? And it doesn't need a majority vote, right? This is how Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor, by the way, winning question 2 after Gray Davis lost. So the class that came in, they voted it was a very close vote. The no's won, don't play charades, but there were 12 or 13 yeses for charades. And then we ended up playing 4 corners, and there were 3 votes for 4 corners. But that was the most votes any of those games got. And they were like, what? This is how we're choosing our governor? This doesn't make any sense. So that's how I started the year. Welcome to 8th grade. This is what we're doing. And it got them really skeptical about all these systems and primed them for thinking more in a, how do we redesign this? So anyway, my point is most of these elections are simulatable, if that's a word, right? Doing it in a way that is something like games or colors or something that is nonpartisan, uncontroversial, but people can get passionate about. Some people love their 4 corners. So, some extension possibilities. This is what I ended up doing just because the kids just had me do it. That's where it went. Ask your students to design a voting method for a new government. And you can create hybrids of existing systems or come up with something fresh. I've had students create really intricate combinations of rank choice and intensity, or in the primary you're going to use this and you're going to proportional representation, and they play around with it, and they'll make the case for why this method is the method we should use. Usually they're not really workable, but it gets them creating. For each decision the class must make, and this is the SEL component of this, right? If you are with a class, an advisory group, or an elementary homeroom class, or whatever it might be, if you need to make a decision, decide which voting method matches the moment best. You can have the class decide it, or maybe there's a rotating committee, this is the election committee, and we're going to decide. Because sometimes you want, as intensity distribution, you want to see what people are most passionate about. Sometimes you want a consensus. You might do at-large districts in that way. And so each voting method is fair in a different way. Which version of fairness do you want with the decision you're about to make? I wanted to loop back to how you guys voted for blue for the negative ballot, which I said was fascinating. Try using 2 or 3 different voting methods concurrently and see if you get the same winners. And if you do, you know the result is truly of the people. This group loves blue. And we know that because blue kept winning through all these different methods. And it shows blue is durable in this room. If we did something with blue, if blue was our class color, mascot, whatever, people would be good with it. There wouldn't be a rebellion trying to sabotage blue. And so this works if you're used to plurality voting with a group of kids, do plurality voting and then try another method and see if you get the same result. And if not, have a discussion about what do we need to do to accommodate, because clearly there's a version of fairness that has another result. Then you can think school-wide, right? Use these voting methods to rethink competitions within your school. How important is it to have only one single winner? How important is it to approach consensus? So if you're doing some kind of competition, school-wide, grade level-wide, and you're assuming there's one winner, don't assume that. There are voting methods like proportional or at-large that have a few winners, and maybe that's okay for what you're doing. Maybe it's not. Is it important to approach consensus? Do you just need a winner because you need someone and we'll just go with the person with the most votes? Or is the winner going to do something that really requires buy-in from the group? And if that's the case, maybe you want something that is more of a consensus building, like a ranked choice voting, rather than a plurality voting. And then, of course, participating in the political process. Many localities, as I mentioned, have been debating whether to institute ranked choice voting. Have your students share their informed opinion with local officials. And they really have informed opinions about this once they're finished. I'll also mention that I've done all of these with you in less than an hour block of time. And I typically do all of them in a 45-minute time period. But you could also stagger them. So if you're teaching a civics class about elections, you could start class each day with 5 minutes of a different voting method. And then over the course of 2 weeks, they've got this vocabulary of voting methods, have them create a new one, have the class try it out at the beginning of a class for the first 5 minutes, and get that vocabulary, get that repertoire built. So This is my last slide. You can scan the QR code to get today's slides. You can get a link to the ballot handout. If you end up using or adapting any of these ideas, I'd love to hear about how it went, as I'm always adding to what I know about how this works. It's relatively recent. And here are all the ways you can get in touch with me. Does anyone have any questions? I suppose if people have questions, I could talk about them, or we could bring you back into your conversations with your neighbors. Any questions? Okay. Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. For this that's a good question. In this activity, I haven't. It's just to see voting methods. I do, of course, do simulations where they're making the case for different things and they're voting on them. So like a model United Nations, that kind of thing. In this one, because the goal is just to see how else you can do it. It would be interesting to run a few of these and then campaign and then run it again and see how it changes, right? And how campaigning would be different. So you could experiment with like, does ranked choice voting actually make campaigning more positive? And see what happens in the class. That would be interesting to do. Yeah?
Do you ever talk about the history, like how it's been developed or how it's like, I'm thinking specifically like whites-only Democratic primaries in the South. Do you ever
That's a great question. I've taught about it and not in the context of this activity. And the reason is for me, and I think that's a good idea to do that. The reason is that I've divided my 8th grade into 3 trimesters, and the first trimester is civics, and this is where this comes in. The second trimester is social justice organizing, and that's where I talk about the whites-only primaries. But now that you mention it, yeah, that's what I'm going to do from now on, give that history. Because actually, as you saw what I did with some of the more modern-day contemporary examples, like the Clinton-Obama election, this is also a way to incorporate more contemporary politics and some more controversial politics in a more neutral way that still gets at the problem. Like I'll also often talk about how talking about majority plurality, right? Donald Trump did not get a majority the first time he won. He did not get a majority the second time. This third time, now that more ballots are being counted and the trends, it looks like he's not going to get a majority this time either in the national popular vote. And there's our president who's been elected 2 times without a majority, as was Bill Clinton, elected 2 times without a majority of the popular vote. And so how do our elections work this way? It can lead you into more content that you might want to tiptoe around if you're not doing it in a way that's it's set up for you. But yeah, the history of it, I agree, that is a really great idea to talk about the history of not just the whites-only primaries, but other reasons why. We'll talk about the history of electoral college, obviously. Why have cities made at-large districts? Why have cities sometimes gone away with, Harvey Milk, for example, famously became elected to San Francisco Board of Supervisors because they did away with at-large districts and did geography. In that way, you had the person from the gay neighborhood, the person from the black neighborhood, the person from the... So that's... You can go different directions and talk about the history of... And that also leads into DEI conversations, which are really important, which I think a lot of schools are trying to figure out how to do in ways that won't get you censored. Yeah, I think I saw another hand. Was there someone else with a question? Yeah.
I would say that this could also open the door about talking about the bandwagon effect, especially where you have them voting. Did you feel the sense that you have a switch going on the winning team? Because I could see how my classmates are voting.
Great point. And I'll add to that also secret ballot. That what would happen if these ballots were all secret? And the reason I don't do secret ballots is just time. It's easier to count hands. But if you were going to stagger it and did secret ballots, and maybe do a secret ballot with one class and an in-person ballot with another class of about the same number of people, and see if the results are different, and then have the classes debrief together. Because all of these are elements of our voting system that we often don't think to teach about unless there's an activity designed to teach about it. Yeah, these are great. There's so much wisdom in this room. I want these conversations to keep continuing, and I know that we're about time to end, but please, yeah,
You should actually note the main speaker's canceled, so we're actually probably not up against the code.
Coates is canceled? Oh, man. Bummer. All right, well, anyway, thanks for letting me know. Yeah, so don't go. Find another session to go to, because I know we're all going to go to John House of Coates. And have conversations on the way out. Have conversations with me, and keep talking about this. And hopefully, you'll find ways to use some of this in your classes. Thanks for being here.